And that leads us to start our journey with Fallout Season 1, Episode 1, The End. A humble recruit from a post-apocalyptic organization is tasked with scouting the wasteland in search of pre-war technology to preserve it, facing challenges and critiques along the way. We watched both episodes 1 and 2. Okay. I know we do this thing where we break down the episodes. I am so on the fence about this show. I just have to start. Like, I am on the fence to the point where I don't know how many times I picked up my phone while watching this thing. I got bored. Very bored. And I did not care for these 2 episodes. Yeah, and I am going to watch the next 2 episodes, but I don't know. I don't know if this show is for me. Yeah.
So I like them. I like Shogun, where like for you, where Shogun I think about like after I watched the episode and This one I watched it and I moved on. I mean, not in a bad way. It's just like I see what I did like about it. Because I know there were, whenever I first saw the trailer, I guess earlier this year, maybe late last year, whenever it was, the inevitable comparisons to The Last of Us, came about, and we talked about it too, with video game shows and that kind of stuff. But as I was watching it, I got some of the boys vibes from it, to be honest. And that's where I'm feeling like I want to give it a chance. Because I feel like there is a lot of satire in the show. So, and that satire, in particular, just picking on, picking on the elements of the American dream, sort of like, and the satire of it, and sort of the world that they built in this show, and it's not and from what I gather, just hearing people talk about it, it's not like unlike The Last of Us, which really adapted the game that, for the most part, that was there, and they just translated to live action. Here, this show is building on the previous 6 Fallout games, in that universe, and then telling a new story that could, conceptually be, the 7th video game, but instead they're just doing it in live action with the Vault 33 dwellers. So that said, I think those are some of my overall initial thoughts as far as some of the vibes I got from the show, and I'm like, okay, color me intrigued that I want to come back before making a final judgment.
Yeah, so in this episode, we meet Lucy McLean, who's one of the Vault dwellers. And there is a trade with another Vault. The trade goes south because they do get married, but they on the wedding night they also realize that they traded that Vault had previously been raided, and so these are raiders who are actually not only raiding their Vault, but were after Lucy's father. And they are led by, I'm trying to find her name. Modaver? Yeah, Modaver.
Modaver, yeah.
Yeah. Who clearly knows something about the McLeans. As she leaves after taking Lucy's father, she mentions how much Lucy looks like her mom. And she also has a line. There's an exchange between her and Lucy's father where Modaver says, "Everyone knows who I am. Do they know who they are?" Emphasis on they. And they're the result of life's tricky little choices. And so I think that I like that line because that does allow for some intrigue of like, okay, so there's obviously something going on there. There's history. Clearly, we're kind of interrupting a story. and being told bits of information. So I like that, and I'm curious about it, and I have some thoughts, especially after episode 2. But what did you think about this whole trade, raid, and then hostage exchange?
Yeah. So this whole the whole vault concept. So of course we get with the way the series starts. We start 200 years in the past from present day when we meet the vault dwellers. So it was like right before, and so we get this post. It's America that on a divergent timeline that never really grew out of the 50s, even though it was I guess the timeline for this show is actually it's in the near future, maybe 2070s or something like that, as far as when we first see the cowboy and his little daughter and stuff at the birthday party, and then of course all the bombs start dropping. Which I bring that up in that when we fast to really get to the vaults themselves, and like you said, we when we were first introduced to the vaults, we just sort of see these communities very egalitarian in some regards, as far as it seems like the structure, and then also very weird dynamic too, because you're you got these breeders and stuff, so I'm like, is this some kind of eugenics thing?
Right.
Especially given that the goals are to when the radiation levels are low enough, they'll repopulate the surface. So but then we see other things happening in this show where it's just wait a minute, there's these other settlements and stuff clearly that are above ground. So to your point about that line, it seems that something was going on with Lucy's father, and Moldova and all these other factions and people in this world, that there is a history there, and I guess as the season progresses, we will learn more about that history, and really just sort of seeing how this whole post-apocalyptic society developed, and how people, how humanity is managed over these few years, and you got these vault dwellers who have a pretty good life. They got it seems when compared to some of the other, compared to the brotherhood that we saw with Maximus, as the next character we're introduced to, and then of course we see what eventually happened to the cowboy, becoming a ghoul. So so that's just sort of my sort of thoughts there with what's going on with that line in particular, and just the vaults themselves.
Right. Yeah. And the next character we are introduced to is Maximus, who's on the surface. And we're kind of introduced to our first surface society through Maximus. And I don't really know what they're the quote unquote police, but they also are a cult.
Yeah, and you can say the vault's a cult.
Yeah. They're I don't know if they're the police or if they're just also more well-intentioned raiders. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I wasn't clear about what they were either. I mean, they seem to be some type of protectors of what? I don't know. And then, and we get some further, second episode. I know we're trying to keep them, take an episode at a time, but it does, they do seem interrelated in some regards.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. And I think that's one of my issues with these first 2 episodes is this first episode, because of how you're first introduced to Lucy, you follow her story, and the next thing you know, it's oh, now we're going to switch to Maximus. And then by the end, we get the brief 5 minutes of the Ghoul. Mm-hmm. And so you're okay, this is our Scooby game. Next episode, Scooby Gang comes together.
Yeah.
A lot of exposition, a lot of setup, and a lot of me just being like, okay, I'm waiting for the story to be.
Yeah, so
and I get it's beginning.
Yeah.
But this is just not the way I prefer series beginnings to occur. I totally understand what they're doing. It's not lost on me. It's just not my preference of how to start a story.
Yeah. I would. I will say it. The first episode was hard for me to get through.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was like, all right, first episode. All pilots are always tough. It had enough, like I said earlier, it had enough there. It got me intrigued that I was like, okay, not how, for a post-apocalyptic show, it's like, okay, I'm seeing where everything's set up. The vault piece was interesting to me. Where it lost me was actually Maximus.
I know, right? I completely agree with you. Where I was on board with the vault.
Yeah.
And then I kind of raised an eyebrow with the stupidly extended long wannabe James Gunn action, play a country song during it. I'm like, I've now seen this. I understand it's a very popular artistic choice right now, but enough is enough. Come on. This isn't anything original. I'm just going to call it spade a spade.
Yeah.
But then we get to Maximus and oh my God, Maximus, can we kill him? Because he, so far in the episode and a half that he appears in, he is so boring. He is so boring. And I just don't like him. There's nothing. And Lucy's a bit annoying. But I have a similar feeling about her that I did as I did with Luffy at the beginning of One Piece, where I'm like, I don't know if I can handle too much Luffy. But then you meet Maximus and you're like, oh, it can get worse.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing too, is like if you're introducing characters and you're trying, it would have been better almost, not that I'm like a showrunner or whatever, but I almost feel like, honestly, have Lucy's story from episodes 1 and 2 play out, and then in episode 2 introduce Maximus or something. I don't know. It was just something just structurally, it just did not resonate with me, and I was just like checked out until I actually like the Dane character better in that sequence, and I wasn't really I was really not really. I was there, but not with it until she ended up getting injured because of the razors they put in her boot, and then when they're interrogating Maximus, and the one thing that did stick out, and all of the whole sequence that sticks out with me with him is he, whenever questioned by his superiors, he kind of like, no, I didn't do it, but I kind of wish it did.
Yeah, no, I think that the best part of that was the interrogation scene.
Yeah.
That was a really good part. But I don't know. I agree with you. You could have allowed us to be in the vault for the full episode and maybe have a little bit of her on surface ground. Mm-hmm. And then in the next episode, or maybe just like what you do with the Ghoul at the end of the episode, where we knew Walter Goggins wasn't going to go anywhere. That's why when they first said 200 years later, I'm like, okay, the math ain't mathing for me right now, because I know. But then when they kind of explain how the radiation and he's become this other thing, and how that's all working, and they dig him up and to send him on this mission, like, I think we just needed that. We needed like a 10-minute, this is Maximus, this is a brotherhood. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to learn more later, because having this dual story between Lucy in the vault and Maximus in the brotherhood, it didn't meld, it didn't mix well. And it just it wasn't that interesting. The next episode, though, when you start to actually mix the pot up and the people actually start just my one problem with this is, man, the convenience of how these people all end up in Philly and it does isn't just with Lucy, Maximus, and the Ghoul. No. We have to add in Willix, who is the target in the second episode, the target that Maximus and Lord Titan are sent by the Brotherhood to retrieve. As in the opening sequence of the Target episode, we are shown that Willix is a Wilzig. Sorry, I keep saying Willix. Wilzig is a mad scientist of sorts, but he likes a dog. So we're more importantly, and I hope the dog is around for a while. CX404. And we see them escape the lab with something. And they're off to Philly, and that's where conveniently everyone ends up.
Yep. Yeah. So I will give them, I guess it's 8 episodes, so I will give them credit for not dragging it out.
I thank the Lord.
This is plot convenience for sure, but thank you for not dragging it out.
I know. And then so because I've already started on this episode, I just want to go to the very end. What did you think when Will Zig killed himself?
Michael Emerson, not there long enough.
I know. I didn't really like I don't know. He's definitely an actor who, when you see him, you're like, oh, I know the character you're playing right now.
Yeah. I wanted more Will Zig. I mean, I was like, damn it. The one thing that got me intrigued about this show is gone.
I know it, and every time, we were Lucy was getting a lot of heat from everyone she encountered on the surface. I mean, she's clearly a vault dweller. Yeah. They were all center. Wilzig was the one person who did it in a way, but also wasn't as patronizing to her.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, to an extent, you almost felt Wilzig should have been in a vault.
Yep. Maybe he was, maybe because he knew a lot of. I mean, because he's like, I know who you are, Lucy, and and so he clearly, to what we were discussing earlier, there's a history here with all these characters.
Okay, I have thank you for bringing up that line. I was going to forget it. Here's my theory and what I'm going to put out there. And I know 200 years have passed, but I do remember in the opening sequence of the first episode, while they're on TV, while they show a brief clip of TV, and they mention something about the president's family has gone into hiding.
Mm-hmm.
I think the McLeans are a part of that family.
I think you're spot on with that theory. And
you know what? I'm gonna make another call back to 3-Body Problem. I think they figured out how to freeze themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were. Yeah. Well, they froze themselves, or like you said, I mean, this enough of these, because I mean there is. And that's why I do like about this show is, and they do show with Lucy and meeting the people in Philly, they are really getting into some of the class issues and structures and stuff. So to your point, whenever the Great War happened, there was a class of people like, and I think you're right. I mean, I think that is probably why Vault 33 is special compared to, say, Vault 32 and some of the other ones. Not knowing anything about the lore of the game, fair enough. I will freely admit that. But I don't
think Vault 33 is special.
Well, it seemed, when I say special, just meaning like it just seemed to be suburbia.
Yeah. No, it definitely did.
And it's on full display when Lucy's out, interacting with people, and to your, and Wilzig definitely, he wasn't patronizing for sure, and saying, "Look, I'm trying to help you out here, kid. You're not from around. You're lighting a fire in the middle of the night in the wastelands."
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course her interactions with Ma Jang and in Philly. So
right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just hope that she and the Ghoul have some conversation. Oh, my other prediction.
Yeah.
I Movir.
Mm.
That could be the cowboy's daughter.
Mm. Mm.
Just saying. Just saying.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know.
It could be. That's another,
Since all these characters are suddenly conveniently meeting, I think that we've been introduced to a bunch of characters that are all going to conveniently be connected.
Yeah.
And so, what did you think about Michael Rappaport being Lord Tinnitus?
I'm so glad you pointed that out, because I was like, I know him from somewhere, and I think that was beautiful. That was spot on casting.
Oh my God. The only reason why I couldn't, I've seen his work. I know he's in some classic movies, of course.
Yeah.
But really why he's on my radar right now is because I didn't realize this, but he's a huge fan of Vanderpump Rules and reality television on Bravo. Huge fan. So he he does TikToks about it, all of the stuff. So the moment they took off, I was just like, this makes sense. This makes sense. I just need him to say the word Scandival, and then we have it a day. My God. My God. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the fight between the Ghoul and Maximus that I probably spent most of my time walking around doing other things during, because it went on way too long?
That was another. It was just funny, it was just cartoony. That whole sequence. I mean, I guess they got to do a better job of getting me on board with Maximus, because at this point, I'm just not there with him. I mean, he's the. I mean, if he's supposed to be I don't know what his role in all of this is. I mean, clearly Lucy's she's got her mission. The Ghoul is clearly what he is. Maximus, I mean, he may be he gets the short shrift of storytelling here, because he just seems to be, well, he's consistent in one way. I mean, he's cold blooded. I mean, he with whenever Dane got her foot cut and he was cut off, and he was just like, I wish I didn't do it, but I wish I did. And then how he treated Titus whenever, he didn't give him the stimulant to help him get healed. I mean, he's definitely got a cold-blooded streak in him. And I know that it did flash back to how these, the armor warriors rescued him from wherever he was when he was a little boy. So I'm wondering if he's just he's reached this place, and we did see elements of this in the episode, both episodes, where he may be disillusioned this organism with the Brotherhood. And so when he,
I mean, to understand more about Maximus, we have to understand the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And so they did some teases of flashbacks of how he became a part of the Brotherhood, but we still don't really understand what the Brotherhood is in terms of this world. And, there's a lot there.
Yeah, and I did do a little bit. I did listen to one video just to help to get some context. And I want to say the Brotherhood was this was just a straight backstory video that I watched. And I want to say that they mentioned the Brotherhood maybe showed up in either Fallout 3 or 4. And I mean, I think they were I guess the quote unquote good guys. But so clearly there may be some elements of it who are not so good. So maybe that's why I was thinking maybe he might be a little disillusioned with the Brotherhood.
Right. Right. I, in terms of this fight, it dawned on me about halfway through why I'm probably not digging the Maximus Brotherhood type Lord Tinnitus
Yeah.
storyline. It is so video game.
Yeah.
And I know we're watching a show based on a video game, but you brought it up before, the comparison between this show and Last of Us. Last of Us, you would get there were I don't really think there were a time when you could say, "Oh, we were clearly watching a game based on a video game."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the suit of Lord Tinnitus itself is just so video game where you're just like, oh, and also bad CGI. It's bad CGI in my opinion. Bad CGI. So I don't know. It felt much more like they were so focused on bringing this game. And from what I understand, another thing to point out is I think my brother told me he played Fallout, and Fallout is, I forget exactly the term they use it. It's not the same type of video game that the Last of Us is, because Last of Us is a story, like, and then there's gameplay there's gameplay, and then there's these stories and these cutscenes. While I think it's called an open player game, where it's like, here's the world, and now here's the game, and maybe a little bit of story, especially because there are sequels, so you connect, but it's not that much focused on an overarching story itself.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm starting to feel that, where, they did bring a world to life, and we have some different perspectives on the world with the characters, but I'm just hoping we get our Scooby Gang moment where they can all work together, because the Ghoul needs Lucy and the Lucy needs the Ghoul right now, because we really need somebody to like whip her into shape.
Mm-hmm.
And Maximus, we just need answers.
Yeah.
We need to understand, or else you gotta go. You gotta go. Give the suit to someone else, or you know what? Let's just get rid of the suit altogether, because it's not that good CGI.
Yeah, and to your thing, I know you mentioned earlier about the dog CX 404. It looks like CX is going to be around, because the Ghoul did treat him from the wound that he inflicted on him whenever. So
yeah, I hope CX and the Ghoul, like,
it looks like they're going to be a partner. The dog seems to be thankful to the Ghoul for rescuing him, because at the end of the episode they were together. And
then they're all off to see Medora. We got to learn how to pronounce that name.
Moldaver, I think. I gotta watch it again. I've only watched the episodes one time, so I got to get the pronunciations down.
Moldava. All right, well, on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter, also known as X, at Will M Polk, WILLMPOLK.
You can find me there too, at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and Threads at Scene_N_Nerd, and our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.